Hi everyone, and welcome to this fifth webinar of React Nano Degree. Uh, Sorry for not doing the webinar yesterday. It's been a very busy week, so we are conducting today this webinar. This week it's an easy one. It's just comparing Redux Store with React Component State. Before beginning with with the webinar, I wanted to show you, tell you, okay, what you should have done this week, if you want to follow the learning path. This week, you should be finishing the Redux theory. I think it's the lesson 6 and 7. And next week, you have 5 weeks for starting and finishing the Redux project. So, because I'm going to do these 5 weeks Redux webinars, like talking about middleware and Redux Thunk and things like that. I just wanted to tell you, I think they are the best weeks for telling me doubts you want for the webinars and to put some information about what you want to see about React that doesn't go into the lessons. Advanced React with Redux, because we will be focusing a lot in Redux in the project. But I think because later we have the React native part, I think it's good to learn things about React. Maybe you want to see hooks, functional components, and like things like that. So even for this webinar, I didn't put a third part of the component state that it's not shown in the lessons. So if we have time at the end, I will show it, or if not, just go to show it in another webinar. So let's jump into the webinar. Okay, so first of all, we have to remind what's React State. You have a link for the previous lessons where we have talked about lifting a state in webinar 2, and you have the links in the classroom about what's React State in the fundamentals of React. And mainly, React State is stored locally inside a component. Remember, it's just the state of our application lives in the component. And when we have components that share that state, it's usually a top-down a hierarchy where the children, the subcomponents, make use of a state, common state that it's stored in the parent. Remember the example where we lift from the React documents the temperature in Celsius to a parent component, and usually this works like that. A parent component has this state, and the children just get past that state with props and just read from them. Remember that's props, internal props for components that are read-only, so you can't directly update them. So if a subcomponent needs to update a parent state, we need to also pass a function from the parent to the subcomponent to the children's to the children to update that state. So feel free to gather any information, any doubts you have, and make them into the Slack channel. This is taken from the it's a reminder picture from the webinar 2, where we had the users page, where we had the paginator, the filtering, and we were moving the states. So in the blue box we have the state that it lives in the parent, and is shared into the children. So as you see, users component has users.js component has the users actual page and total items count as states in the component, and is passed as a prop into user list the users. The paginator has the actual page and the total items count. Well, the user filter has the filters that finally we had put also into the parent component, but in this picture it wasn't. But if you remember that lesson, it was like that. So that was the basics from Redux State. Remember that Redux is just a framework to share, to manage the state differently, and we have a unique store, a unique place where all the state for our application is stored. So we have a common box for saving it, and every time a company needs to access the store, needs to be subscribed to the store, to the changes, to be updated every time the state changes. So our whole application is synchronized to this unique state place, and in this way we have like the data centralized and better accessible. Remember the example from the webinar 3 where we were using this nice comparison between the Redux components and the bank way of working, and we have like, I remember that Redux has 3 actors, or 4 if you want to go deeper. They store with the state and actions and the reducers. From what you have seen from the lesson, from the class, you understand that Redux, like you have a big state that's globally, and so you can get into a big store. That's one of the problems of Redux, that becomes very big and difficult to manage. And with Redux State, you may have like a lot of components using same state and passing it from parents to students. So both approaches have their advantages and their disadvantages. There are other options that in the future we could see, like to see that you don't need to go to depend only in Redux store or state. There are middle things in the middle. But for the sake of this lesson, of this webinar, we just need to focus from what's we need to focus in the React schedule, where we talk about these differences. So I just been watching online references and examples and guides where people estimates and uses their Redux state versus React, because from my experience I have been using the other parts that for managers I use Redux, but as I develop it with GraphQL, that is another advanced tool for developing and plays very well with React. There is like Apollo client, Apollo server, and this Apollo GraphQL framework works with Redux inside. So you get that, and have other tools that don't make me to use that much quantity of Redux. So I wanted to see how other people uses Redux versus React State, and I mostly agree with all these approaches. So let's jump into this example. So one difference we can take into how to choose between Redux and Redux is the duration or the length in time of this state. State, remember, is that a very important, the most important part of our application after user experience, and there is something that we want to have they are in a state for like seconds, and things that want to have it for all eternal state. So it's a very important thing to consider. So for the approach of duration, we have like short-term state, middle-term state, and long-term state. And depending on this, we can't like assume where to use Redux, React, or other else, or something else. So this is like a guide. Of course, if we say, okay, in this example, we should use Redux, maybe there will be example when React is better used, or the other way around. So don't because it's very flexible, it's React and Redux are not as much opinionated as Angular or these other frameworks. At the end you have a lot of freedom. So in the case of a short-term state, as you see, it's the fast. You want a state that it's just change very fast, and you don't want to hold this information for too long. So it's not like the username that you are going to print every time a user comes. It's just like, for example, the on-change event of an input in a form, where you just want to manage the state of that form. So it's that, okay, I just want to keep this internal state while the user writes the field, even if while the user fills out the form. If you don't want to make it, if the computer breaks down, if you don't want to use live updates or live saving without buttons, remember and recover that information. Just you want normal forms that until the end of until you submit the form, you don't save anything. In that kind of cases, like that's a state while user is writing, it's a very short time state, because once you submit it, it's other kind of information that you want to manage differently, maybe. So this is an example. So where do you think that this kind of short state term state should be stored, in Redux or React? Right? Yeah, I think this should be stored in React. Mainly it's because if you are working in an input and you want to do the on-change event of that input, you are just working in the state of that component. It's encapsulated to that component. You don't want to restore it after a refresh and things like that. So it's a very nice case to manage it with React. Another case where we can use is medium-term state. These cases are like, for example, when you submit the form, the previous form, when you, for example, you are creating a new item in a page, and that item becomes, that form can be updated to changed into an update form. Now you have created you submit the form, and you move into a view where you have the update view, the delete view button, update view button, and delete button, and maybe the plus, the add icon to go back to the form. In this case, the submitted information that you have created, you might want it to be, if you want to remain in the state. It's a case that's it's going to be there while the user uses the app. This means like while, for example, the user in a web application doesn't close the tab or doesn't refresh the application. If he refreshes, maybe you lose it. It's like or maybe that to understand that you have submitted that form and don't let him go back to that form. So maybe data that you load from the API. No, every time a component is created, and the component will mount, or from the parent, you load data from the API, and you want to have that state live a little longer, and don't be refetching it to the API and make like a little cache. So in these cases, it's a clear example where maybe we could use another kind of state manager, or you think that React state should be used? Maybe then we need more differentiation. The common case is that you should put this state, if you want to manage this in the state, of course, in Redux. As you see, there will be a lot of differences later, but for the main reasons, midterm state should be used in Redux. And lastly, we have the long-term state. So this is like, okay, I want this state to live forever in our application, or until it's changed, of course. And even if the user refreshes the page, or between different dates where a user comes back to the page. So, this is an example where you shouldn't be, I think I have this this tip where it shouldn't go here in this view. Okay, this is like something that shouldn't be used in safety in Redux or in state. Okay, this should be stored in elsewhere, somewhere else. I don't know. Is elsewhere is a word? I didn't check it in English. Sorry if I just made a new English word. So in these cases, you just should save them into the server and retrieve if anytime you come back to the application. Maybe save them into local storage as cookies and things like that. So this might see that you can't have information stored in the server, later stored in Redux, but I think it's thinking about how long you want to stay to live in your application. It's a nice way to begin to put things in order. Okay. Sorry. Okay, we've seen duration. Another way of dividing how to use state is the scope of use, or how which companies are going to use that state. No, how many people are going to use it. So remember that this is the more common differentiation from Redux and React. If a lot of components access, every component in your application access the state, and you have like 30 components, maybe you shouldn't put that username or that state in React, because you have to make magic and a big effort to manage that state. So would be an example where to put it in Redux, and if it's just in a unique component, just go into Redux state. I just mentioned this even when I was just going through the duration case, because it's the basic one. So we can look into the basic example where we look into how many times we pass the state as props between children. And the other example is when unrelated components need the same state, because we usually talk about related components like parents, children, but a lot of times in the real life, we just have unrelated components, util components, data information components, and representational components, and we have to manage some information from there. So for the depth of passing down props, usually you can make the rule of, okay, if an state get passed more than 2 times, more than 2 components down, like, okay, we should use Redux. Like, maybe, of course, if you are not using Redux in your application and you only have one component where you have to, okay, maybe this parent passes down the state three components down, uh, and it's the unique case, maybe you don't need to add Redux library and create a store and Redux reducers for only that one component. But see the case, like usually, this would be a very nice example where, okay, it's going to be difficult to track this state. It's going to be difficult to even document the state. So, oh, this child, oh, remember that it's called, and you just click opening tabs in your editor, finding where the hell is that state. Uh, so a good rule of thumb is if it's pass React state 1 to children down, and if you find yourself passing it more components, to more subcomponents, just go to Redux. I must say that here is where we should put the third tool that we are not talking in this webinar, because it's not in the scope of what Udacity teaches, but I have a link at the end of this presentation. But I really encourage you to look at it and to tell me, Carlos, please make an extra video, make an extra webinar, make a blog, or just give us some links. Even if you go to the React documentation, you're going to see that it's very easy. That's the context API. Context API, I will talk it later, but it's was introduced in React 16.0.0.3, well, at the beginning of 2018, if I recall correctly, and it's a very nice case to put a state in React without putting it in Redux when you have lots of components using it. So, but I think I am just mixing things. Sorry. So just go back to Redux and React to make it like as the bank example. Simple examples, simple webinars, simple knowledge. Go to the projects, pass them, or even make extra things with the projects, learn with the projects, and go back and maybe learn something. And we will have these 5 weeks to make the project, to learn more about Redux. I think it's like the most difficult part of the nano degree. And if you have time, and this is the time where you have more free time this month, I encourage you to go deeper into React. And the other case is the normal case. Okay, you have, as I told you, the utils components, API components, representational components. They don't are related between them, but you use them together, or you have to access the same state from them, but they aren't like in the hierarchy of the building example of the user interface. They are not. They don't have any relation between them. So in that kind of cases, you should go for Redux. Another case where you should take a look to what how you want to use Redux is when you want to track changes to state. Remember that Redux is a framework that it's not people when goes to Redux just puts everything into Redux state, and that's not the case. You shouldn't do that. But you should think that Redux makes all the tasks simple by centralizing them, all the state and everything, all tasks in a single store and centralized data. But if you want to make to track the changes to the state, like for example logging the state, how the state of your application changes. If you want to create the typical undo redo feature in application, like when you are editing in your editor, writing in your editor, and you want to undo, or in Photoshop, like any kind of application where you are drawing in a canvas. This kind of good thing, or maybe if you want to make a replay event, if you want to show what you've done 2 hours before or 1 hour before, like, okay, I'm going to show you how you have used this page. In that kind of cases, when you want to do extra magic with your application, it's like, okay, how I can do this? Maybe you can think about Redux here, because it's something that is going to be very easy to manage, because every action goes into the into Redux, and you can have very nice. You can track it very centralized, and you can make use of a lot of the applications you use. So that was like the three main reasons to look into how Redux changes, how to choose between Redux and React. As I have told you lots 2 or 3 times in this webinar, you should see that, and there is a link for this Dan Abramov blog. This is Dan is I imagine you have seen his Twitter and articles, because it's a React worker from Facebook, and it's the creator of Redux. So when he talks about Redux or React, I think it's a very nice source of learning. So remember, you might not need Redux. It's an important part, because you have to think that Redux is just a framework. It's just a trade-off. It just gives you some advantages, but it's not okay. You have to make it everything in Redux and make everything as Redux says. It's just okay. In reality, it just gives you the ability to describe application state as just plain objects and as arrays. It's very easy to read the states. Just describe the changes in the system as plain objects. Remember, the actions are like plain objects. Very easy to do things. And describe the logic for handling changes as pure functions. This is what Redux gives you. Even you can go to the React state and write them with dispatch functions and make look like if it was Redux. So just don't overheat your heads and get crazy. You might not need Redux. There are some examples where you might need it. Like, this is taken from his article. For example, it's a review of his thoughts where you should use, or you may need Redux. Maybe there are cases we have seen in the previous differentiation, but do other parts of the application care about this data? So, this is the case where a lot of components use unrelated components use the same state, so would be a nice way, a nice place where to put Redux. Do you need to be able to create further derived data based on this original data? We haven't seen this case, and it's like, okay, nice to remind me, okay, if we have one data in one place, but we don't want that data, but usually we won't use derived data from that. And the example I wrote for this webinar makes use of this kind of derived data. In that case, might be good to use Redux, because it's the same. Okay, and it's not the same data, but I want to be in sync with the original data, the father data or the mother data, where I want to be synchronized to that data to update the derived data. So this is a good case. It's the same data being used to drive multiple components. So this is like our components. Lots of components use that data, are updated because of that data. Is there value to you in being able to restore this state to a given point in time? So this is like, okay, for example, the example it gives, the time travel debugging is a tool where you have from Redux Dev Tools. So if you think that you want to use the magical Redux developer tools we've seen in the previous webinar, where you can go like to the future, review, replay, state change. Maybe if you use Redux State, you can see it with that application, with that tool. You just can see with the React developer tools that doesn't have that power with the state. So maybe if you need to track this debugging, or you want to do the undo things with feature with an editor, you might need Redux. For example, if you want to cache the data, you want to, even that it's data that has to come from the needs to live into the server, you might want to cache that data, right? So it's another case when you want to use Redux. Another case, do you want to keep this data consistent while hot reloading UI components? Okay, remember, you might want to have a state while updating a view while you are editing, or while something changes in the view. But if it's a state from Redux, from React, remember that this external date is forgotten. So every time you are working. That's a kind of good thing. Like, okay, maybe I'm developing. I see that in this case I don't want it to be in Redux, but it's like very complex to work right now in this difficult user interface that I'm developing, because every time I make a change, the view is changing and the data is not whole there. So maybe for just developing purposes, you have to move it to the Redux state and use the developer tools for the previous webinar, and maybe load, like preload initial state, like, okay, we were managing the form from the web, and after having it as we want, click it in persist and just go back to that exact point every time we work in the form. So that would be okay. Now, after 5 hours working in this form, having it working perfectly, now I commit it and change it and I'll put it back into internal React State, because I know how it works, and now I don't need it in Redux. But for that developing, you might need it. So that's a very nice case, very nice approach from Dan. That's I wouldn't have considered myself, but it's like very, very clever. No, just move it to Redux, work with the tools you have, learn to debug, learn to test things, and later give the user another application. But yeah, I think it's a very good case. After watching how Redux works, Redux developer tools works, wow, I think it's amazing. So I would say some questions, but I think that's because I changed the webinar. You aren't watching it in live right now. So I just prepare. There are left two parts of this webinar. For those who are watching it later, we have a little exercise and later some little code, some little example. No, so this exercise, you might disagree in how we store things. It's just you have to choose between where to store it. This in React, in Redux. So there are six examples. In the first case, we have these three fields: the selected value in a drop-down on a page, the visibility of toolbars in the application, and the current level in Angry Birds. Remember, this is taken from the internet. I give you the resources link at the end of the articles where I took these examples, because I wanted to be accurate what people think. Later with my examples, or when you have doubts, I will give you my insights, but I want you to give all the proper data and not just my opinion. So in the first case, the selected value in a drop down on a page. In this case, it's just while you are clicking in an interface, you just click on the drop down and you select one. You are not submitting that form, just, it's like a state that you are like in that moment. So it would be like the case of short-term state maybe. So in my case, I think I give you like some seconds to think about the answer if you are watching this. But I think that in this case, well, I think the selected value. I think in this case um, would be because it's selected. It's not like opening it or not opening it. It's selected. It depends. You can put it anywhere. So I think this is more the most complex way, because what I saw they usually put it in Redux, but it's the kind of case that depending on how you want to track these cases. No, it's like if it's a submitted form and it's the selected drop down on the page and it's saved, and you want to have it after the user comes back to this page or something, it's Redux. But yeah, if you put it in React, it depends. It depends on the user case. I think, yeah, it's depending if if you are filling the form and you are selecting an item in the drop down of that form, just can go into React. If it's like, oh, just submitted data and you want to keep it there, yeah, maybe midterm data and put it in Redux. Okay, so the visibility of toolbars in the application. I think this is just like the tooltips, no? Like just you hover over something or appears the toolbar. So, or you click something, appears the toolbar. It's a click and click. It's dynamic, instantly state. So I think that, yeah, here must be. It's no case for Redux. Even that in the previous one we had like encounters feelings. I think this is just okay. Just React. Okay. The current level in Angry Birds. Angry Birds, you are playing Angry Birds and you are inside a screen, and where you are playing, your score, for example, is something that needs to be consistent through the time, through time. No, it's not like very instant state. You don't need it like for 2 seconds. You need it to, okay, if you lose and you go out that screen, you want to see in which level you lost. You lost. So, what do you think? React or Redux? In my case, I think it's right to put it in Redux. So, in these 3 examples, I think it's easy to understand more or less the view. How it depends on how you use it. It depends on the approach, but I think it's nice to think about where you put it. I think it's not wrong answer in the first part, in the drop down, the toolbars. There is people that wants to put everything in Redux, and maybe in the examples on the projects we built for Redux part in this webinar, in this nano degree, you might you put more things that you should in Redux because you get confused and things like that. But I think this is a good go. So we have another exercise. So look at this. We have the open close state of a dropdown. This is like, okay, you clicked the dropdown to show the possible answers or options for that dropdown, or you haven't clicked it. So it's like less time. You need that the state that needs to leave less time into the application. So yeah, in this case, I think that I understand now the difference between the previous and this one. Wanted to make them like, okay, this is like you click the drop down, you just, okay, it's open or not open. Like it's go into React, you just select the drop down. You want it to be like cache that data, put it in Redux. But in this case, React should do the trick. The current page of a book in a book reader application. I think this is like the levels. In the level you are playing Angry Birds previous is like, okay, if I go out from the view, I want to go back to that view. It's not so I want to recover it and I want to be it persistent state. So in my case, I think that should be Redux. And the last part of this example, the state of birds and pigs in the current level in Angry Birds. So this is different because you want like every time the score is changing at that moment, like the birds that they appear, the pigs that where they are, like it's a very dynamic state. It's changing all the time, and when you close it, it just disappears. You just can have another data that is the score you made it, and you don't have that. That's items in the view. So in my case, I would go right into putting that into the component in the state. No, like okay, for that screen, for that components. So that would be React state. Okay. So I hope this makes you clear where to use React, where to use Redux. I think you for understanding this, it's not. I didn't want to make it a very complex webinar. I think it's going to be shorter than the other ones. But the first time you go into Redux, it's quite confusing. So going little by little, and just let me know if you want more complex examples. Or I have seen that even that you should be finishing Redux documentation this week, and we're starting with the project next week or whenever. Some of you have delivered the first project this week. So it's not that you are going behind the learning path, because the learning path is like for 10-15 hours a week, and most of you do 5 to 10 hours per week, so you aren't going behind, so that's why I make these webinars weekly easier, because I know that you are not going deep by now into Redux. So every week, when you go deeper in Redux, maybe I get into complex examples, but once you come back to the Slack channel and come more active, I will know how to help you. I think these weeks have been like very busy for most of you, and congratulations for the ones that have passed this week the project. I think two persons have passed it. I didn't check who they were. I get an idea, so but I don't want to call the name of someone that didn't pass it this week. So I will check it later and congratulate you in the proper Slack channel. So as always, I didn't want to finish something where we could have a little code, little example to see how things would work or how things I would do. I just made a very quick, dirty example. Sorry that my examples are not very beautiful, very great. I just made them like in one afternoon, and I usually I have my own boilerplate for creating React applications, and because I use a lot of tools, when I have to create simple examples, it's like, okay, I can use this, I can use this. They haven't seen this library, so I just create like very easy to follow web pages. So I created this React in the Mentor React versus Redux example. You have, as always, the repository available. I didn't make branches. It's like a master branch with 3-4 commits. It's very easy to follow. So in this example, what I just want to show you the views and later just the code and the application. Um, you have it's a page where you have the typical header, a page where the header, and in the header we have the navigation toolbar for navigating to the pages with React's router. So we have the home, the items and invoices buttons to go to these 3 pages, and we have this username and avatar. Yeah, I created this on Wednesday, no, on Thursday, I think, before going to the cinema to see Endgame. So yeah, sorry for the hype. I wanted to. I was doing that. So I had that the username and the avatar, and of course this is also a link to go to the actual page where we update the profile, the user profile. So this is an example of an application where you have the home, where you have like, hello, this is my webpage, blah blah blah. 2 pages where items and invoices, but the user profile page is, here you have like the dummy data pages, invoices and items, and the user profile form that in user profile. So this is user data that is stored here, but also the username is shown in the other pages. So we have like in the items page, you see that there are dummy data for this. So we have, if you click into items, I just show you some images, but remember that you want to show the name, the username of there. So that's prop is used there. That state or that data is used there. Also, in the invoices page, you want to show all these are the invoices for this user. It's a very dummy example, but it's like real example. You might not, because usually you want to have like the ID of the user, the email of the user, the name of the user, or the avatar of the user, like in a lot of components. So I just use the username to make it visual. But so at the end, you have the form where you change the data, and you see like we have, okay, if I go to user profile, I have the first name, the last name, the email, the sex, and the picture, the avatar. So we have this data. It's a form, local state, and we put this in. We save into the database. It's local state. I don't move it into the server. Even the update avatar works like, if you click in the example, you see that the preview, this preview changes, but it doesn't save it into local into the local folder because it's JavaScript. So I just made like a dummy example where I just go through there. So I just mock the change avatar because it was easier. But take a look from this profile, from this view. Email is just for this view. Sex is for this view. First name and last name is for this view, but avatar is used in other places from unrelated components. See that header uses it, items uses it, and invoices uses it. But also we use a derived data from this data. We use the username, and the username in this case is like the putting together first name and last name. So for thinking about this, this is the idea where we should put the states of things. So the data from the form, for the form in on user profile should go into React, because we don't want it. For persistent afterwards. But the two parts of the avatar and username in header, or the username in items and invoices, should go in Redux. So because every time we go to the front, we want to update those data. In the Redux example here, even if it lives into React, we need to update Redux state with the new data we want to use. So in this case, I'm going to go to the application. Let me, I don't have it open, so localhost 31, let me check. Okay, so this is the example. Okay, just I want to go quick from here, where you have like, you come here to the React state versus Redux state, Redux state versus Redux state example. Gives you like some how it works. This is the note, as this is a dummy local example. The file upload doesn't work, so every time you submit an image, it will change between Thanos and Iron Man. So if we come to the items page, we have items page for Thanos. We have the view here. If we come to invoices, we have lots of invoices here. Invoices page is for Thanos. And if we go to the picture updater, so we have Thanos. I want to update things. Iron. I want to just put Tony Stark. And Tony Star Marvel. I just have it. So, and choose the file. Alright, let me. Yeah. I just don't touch it, Carlos. I have crazy things. Development, user profile, public image. Just as it would be. Every time you just save, it will be changing. But for killer examples, you can see this updating in real time because we submit it here. But submitting it. What happens? Tony Stark. Well, I don't know what I did, but you have to. Maybe I made an error while with the codes, but I click it 2 times. As you see, every time you submit it, because the internal code just changes the avatar. No, it's like updating it, so it's just crazy. But as you see, we have updated the Tony Stark, the mail, and the avatar. The username has changed. The avatar has changed. If we go to items pages, we have it changed, and we have it changed here. So every time we come here, because see like this, because I didn't make the I didn't make it. I think I have to take it a look into the how I made the code, because it's not persistent. This code, I imagine that in the on component load is like component will mount. I just I go back to the initial state from the application. So it's not Tony Stark, but here I will take a look into this and put it better for you to have it. But let's see the code. So I think we have like 5 minutes left. I didn't go much into this example because I wanted just to show you a quick example where you see things. So index, we just have browser, router, we have like the render and the subscribe store. If we go the app.js, we have like this is a nice way to have the main layout. So every page, for example, the home page. Let me go to the components, home, and see we have just here the data, like only the home page data. And for example, in the layout, we would have the main layout, where we have the header, the main part, the footer. I didn't put the footer right now; it was not working properly with the CSS, but because I want to use children here, children props. I I wanted to show you how it's very nice to have like a main layout that is here. So we put always the header and the footer. Later we pass a child component that would be home, username, items or invoices, and would be put here in the middle, so we don't have to repeat the header in every page, because and this way, okay, we have the main layout with main layout has this, so we have components, layout, user, and in layout, footer, header, main layout. It's a quick example for you to understand how you can use composition, children props to show like, okay, the layout and the components just focus on what they have to do. As you see, home page doesn't have anything, just anything. Invoice, if you go to, let me check the store. See, the store gives this initial state for the avatar. We have the, every time we refresh the page, we have the image Thanos GPG and username in Thanos. That's one of the reasons where I just miss. We see like, okay, every time the application is refreshed, this is the initial state that comes. So even if you have changed things in the React form, this goes back to the Thanos, and because this should be every time you refresh. So changing in the React form shouldn't make this change. We have the reducer. Go to the reducer page where we have, okay, we just have action type. So the actions, we have the set user profile where the type of the action is set user profile, and we pass the username and the avatar. So the in the case of this reducer, we just update the state how it is, and we put the username, update it with the username from the action and the avatar from the action. So this would be like very nice, very easy states. And let's jump into the important user profile. So here, as you see, we have the component mount, this set state, loading, and here is the problem. Like even every time we have we are mounting this component, we update it with the states. So if Redux example is not working, this is where we wouldn't be. So I know how to solve it, so I might go after 1 hour of the webinar, but I think it's nice for you to see it. Let me show you, well, this is like the form group with the values. Don't change is an event. The values, every time you change, it's not important. Submit, on click submit, and reset the state. So we go here, we have the handle image state just for the file reader and changing the avatar. Not important. For here, on submit, this is just for switching between Thanos and Iron Man states, avatar. So we set the state like the new avatar depending. This is the flag I use for this dummy example. Not important. Here I create the username, so I update it. So every time we submit data, imagine that we would be like calling the API to save it, and after that we have to dispatch these two items that we want to store in the Redux example. So reset makes this, on change just updates the internal states. So I think this is the problem where we are doing this. So let me come here and make like, okay, const avatar maybe just let me do it for avatar, because store get the state, and imagine that avatar exists. So we show the avatar and the image. Okay, so because that's I didn't take into account. So let me check if now things I had it here. So let me check if okay, I have this working. It should have been refreshed, but let me check it. So let's say Tony Stark, and of course file Iron Man and submit it. I don't know why this first time it doesn't work, but now items, Tony, invoices. Yeah, this is now how it works. You see that now we have the proper picture here. I don't have the name because I didn't go into here, but if we do like first name, let me come here into username. So if username exists, like a very username exists, just username splits and like something very quickly and ugly here, and user, well, just let me copy this. That's like, okay, if we have some, let me check if, wait, up below, let me check if this works. So Tony Stark, to file, go here, open it, submit. Let me submit again to change the avatar items. Tony Stark, Tony Stark. Oh, sorry, split it. We have to split it with the this limitator. Maybe with this one would be better. So maybe, yeah, this would be breaking because if we don't have the comma, but for this example, I will like leave it better for committing before this, but choosing, yeah, made, submit it 2 times for items, invoices. Yeah, now this would be working, so that would be great. And why the first time we change the avatar, new avatar would be, if it's Thanos avatar, we put it, oh, okay, yeah, it's stupid. Like, if it's Thanos avatar, move it into Iron Man. And if it's, you have to toggle it. So, go to Thanos. So every time you just put here Iron Man, Tony Stark, and update it. So let's check if, yeah, now it's working. So every time you click here, you just change it from submit to Tony. Sorry for the errors, but I just went a little quick over this. But you have this would be like we have to make a guard where if it's not split, it's just don't access the elements, or also for the here. But for having it working here, I think it's nice. So for remember that we have the context API that we should learn from it. I'm not going to the documentation, but because it's 1 hour and 4 minutes of webinar, sorry. I just wanted to go through that example and show it to you. Sorry if it was quick. I don't want to make this a big video. But you put it into maybe slower speeds when you go to the part of the code. And so we have questions. I think no one is online. Sorry for moving to today. As always, I give you a list. Oh, what's happening here? A list of something got crazy. A little of sorry of all the resources where I use for this. And as always, the resources are for the data, but the examples I write are like my crazy ideas. So thank you for watching this offline this time. Sorry again for changing the dates. Hope you are watching Redux and learning from it. Congratulations again for those who have finished the project this week. Thank you very much for being there. Stay audacious and just talk about anything at the Slack. Thank you, guys.